Hi, this is Shui with a review of the Nike Zoom GT Cut. GT stands for greater than you, greater than the models before. So they're really trying to squeeze all the tech and knowledge they have into this shoe. This is the cut version. They have the next one coming out called the GT Run and then the GT Jump. Run has a bit of a zoom here on the forefoot and a React midsole. Jump has full-length zoom stroble with a large volume zoom here on the forefoot and the heel, and a jump P-bags spring plate or something on the heel. So it would be interesting to find out what the jump is about. The cut is supposed to be a good balance. It's got a full-length zoom stroble with a zoom here on the heel, so it's double layer in the heel. For those who are familiar with the plush cushioning of LeBron 6 with a double stack zoom in the heel and a full-length zoom, as well as the Jordan 19, this is not exactly it. This is a lot stiffer and it's very low to the ground. Basically, the forefoot zoom stroble is right here, right inside the outsole. There is nothing. There is no midsole surrounding it. There's no midsole separating the zoom stroble and the outsole. So you're basically hitting the floor. So it's even lower than KD13s or the Zoom Universe. As for the heel, additional zoom here, I don't really feel it. It just feels like it's just zoom stroble that's a little bit clunky in the heel because of all the plasticky plate and support they tried to put here. So it feels like a little bit clunkier, heavier version of Zoom Universe in terms of the cushioning, except you don't feel the zoom as well because you, instead of an ortholite insole, you have this React drop-in midsole. It's curved like that. So there's a bit of an elevation here, but unfortunately the shoe itself doesn't have a lot of an elevation. So once you put it on, it feels pretty straight. Yeah, very, very horizontal. So it doesn't have a good heel to toe drop. So that's something you should keep in mind. There's a lot more substance in the forefoot because there's a zoom air and a little bit of a foam on the heel. On the forefoot, as I mentioned before, it's just zoom stroble and the outsole. So there's a little bit of a thicker React foam. So this is basically the same kind of React drop-in midsole you get from Kobe 360s, except with a little bit of an elevation and a little bit thinner on the heel. A lot thinner on the heel. The React does not feel super soft. It's a little bit more on the firm side. It's a little bit disappointing that they did not put some fabric around the top layer to provide that additional friction and grip. Otherwise, you start sweating and you start getting wet and slippery inside. So this is a step backwards for Nike. They even had that in the latest removable midsole model in the Kobe FF. So why not in this one? I don't know how much they can save cost by removing this fabric or not putting the fabric there at all. There's a cavity here to make sure that the zoom stroble is hugged nicely. As you can tell by this shape, the zoom stroble, it's shaped like the carbon plate that you find in the Nike N% runners. So it's curved like that. But that does not they provide any kind of a carbon torsion or a springboard type of response. So yeah, the weight for a size 9, it weighs about 428 grams. So it's quite heavy. That's what you would expect from tank-like shoes like LeBron's. And it actually feels even heavier than that. There's a lot of plasticky materials here. So instead of a large outrigger or a wide base, they have these plasticky little bits. It's fine, but when you have it all the way here around the pinky toe area, for me, it hurts. I'd rather they not do this. So if you've experienced this, and maybe it's the shoes like Kobe 10 where they had the carbon plate right here pinching your pinky toes, this is certainly a shoe you might want to reconsider or really consider what size you want to go with. There is on the zoom stroble right here, it's right inside the outsole on the forefoot area, but on the heel, like the Kawaiis, it's got a little bit more of a foam layer there to give it that elevation, and a zoom air additionally right here on the outsole area and a stroble there. It does not have a clunkiness to it. It doesn't have a double thud. It does transition okay, but it's not as fluid, it's not as soft, it's not as forgiving. There is quite a bit of rigidity here. So it's sort of like an in-betweener. Not a double thud, but not a smooth transitioner. That's something you should keep in mind. Interestingly, the upper has these wobbly mesh material with a paper thin fabric inner, so it's pretty breathable. But something you might want to consider is that there is no wire or fly wire, any kind of lockup mechanism to provide that lockdown or stability there. The tongue is all the way here, the same kind of a stretchy fabric, neoprene type of material. It's good that it has holes here to provide some breathability. Yep, breathability there. Overall, it's got a nice flat toe box, so you don't feel insecure. It's got a nice little lockdown, but it's soft at the same time. The laces are also a little bit stretchy, but again, the pinky toe can hurt depending on your foot shape, and it does feel it runs a bit short and narrow. So I would recommend going up half a size at least. If you have really narrow foot and you like really tight fit and you wear like silky stockings instead of socks, and you want a tight fit, then you can go true to size. But I would really recommend at least going up half a size. It really feels short and narrow. Overall, this heel area has always been an issue for me with low-cut shoes like the Kobe's. They tend to kind of climb up and point and be rigid and provide blisters. But here, they did a good job of making it soft and plush all around. There's a minimal level of foam padding around, but it does a good job. The heel has a decent heel counter inside, and also all around there is this firm, thick TPU pieces to provide the additional stability and lockdown. The outsole pattern is kind of similar to the Kyrie's, but then the similarity kind of ends here, because here they're very closely knitted, so it's really sensitive to dust. I don't know about durability. They're not the deepest, thickest, longest blades or the deepest grooves. I wish they would have used this kind of pattern all around instead of all this really closely knitted, sticky, tight spaces. But it's decent. Traction is decent. Yeah, the price point is an issue for me. I get that they try to put a lot of tech into it. Zoom Trouble, a Zoom Air in the heel, and a removable midsole with React, but they feel like, in some sense, they feel like inferior Kobe 360s or in a more rigid Zoom Universe or a KD 13s. So they try to combine the best of both worlds, but they don't mesh really well. But if you really enjoy the Kobe 360s, then you might find it to be a pleasant surprise, because they do provide an additional lift or some substantial cushioning underneath. Because the Kobe 360s, they're kind of like have a limited lifespan. The React midsole form to the shape of your foot, and they kind of bottom out in certain areas. But once that happens, you will have the Zoom Air to back things up. And for those who enjoy the really low to the ground Zoom Air shoes like the Zoom BBs in the past, which felt like there's nothing but Zoom Air and the Ortholite or whatever insole to provide some cushioning, you will find this is a pleasant surprise, because instead of the Zoom BBs double thud and a very low and flat Zoom Air, which is soft but it will cause blisters, they do have a React foam to provide that additional plushness. So it's a catch-22. To some people, it might be a good version of Kobe 360 with a decent Zoom Air backup, or a good version of Zoom BBs with a very thick insole or a React insole midsole. But to some, it feels like it's a lesser version of the 360s, which feels higher, or the lesser version of the Zoom BBs, which feels like the Zoom Air is hindered by the React foam. Yeah, that pretty much covers it. It's a little disappointing. Hopefully they knock it out of the park with the other two GT models.